to make you accept all the bad things that are happening, to turn you into a biological android, a type of zombie. You cannot make this up. Please send this video to everyone you know. For God's sakes, understand how serious this is. This is a global, scientific, corporate takeover of life itself. The globalists aren't just re-engineering corn and wheat and every other major crop and engineering sterilants into them. Suddenly, all over the news, they're promoting lithium and Prozac and other drugs in the water. Head bioethicist at Cambridge, they're the people that advise and set medical policy for doctors, are announcing they want to force drug you, and they're calling it cognitive enhancement. I've got a CBS News piece where they say that mercury helps your intelligence when everyone knows it causes brain damage.
Mercury-containing vaccines may help, not harm kids, according to 2 new studies in the journal Pediatrics.
You feel sleepy and relaxed. So relaxed. You trust me and what I say.
Has she given up fighting? Alex is about to get a shock from an old friend now on BBC One in Ashes to Ashes. And remember, it was acceptable in the 80s.
Well now, with some strong language on BBC One and BBC HD, the weather's a top talking point with Andrew Marr in Britain from above.
Time for a look at the BBC News, now on BBC One with Fiona Bruce.
Okay, we're off.
Hello, David.
Hi.
What message have you got for the journalists who work at the BBC?
Well, journalists who work for the BBC, and I was one, the message is think for yourself, and don't take the norms in society, and this is what I would say to any journalist, don't take the norms in society as the point of reference for how you see the world and how you report the world, because that's what happens. I saw it in journalism myself. People say, so you're saying that all journalists are involved in, they're all manipulating. No. What happens in journalism, mainstream journalism I'm talking about, is they take the norms in society at any point, and that's their point of reference. So anyone that is saying or doing things outside of those norms is in my case, ridiculed. Because they're outside the norm. So a few centuries ago, today's journalists would have ridiculed anyone that said the earth was round, because the norm was at that time that it was flat. And so it's important for journalists to open their minds to see that the norms are not necessarily everything there is to know. But then you've got the next level with the BBC and mainstream journalism in general, in which there are limits to what you're allowed to put out. You know, if you reported someone like me in a, this guy takes the points and this and all this stuff, then that's fine. You can report me on that level. But if you said, okay, we're gonna do this report or this documentary on this guy, and actually we're going to take seriously what he's saying, not that we're going to believe it, but what we're going to do is we're going to go with an open mind and we're going to look at the evidence, then that's a completely different situation. And I doubt very much if that would be acceptable, and certainly would never make the air. I've been interviewed a couple of times by tabloid journalists who wanted to do, in the last occasion, a 2-page feature about what I was saying about me, and all the photographs were taken and everything. But his article was going to be, actually, this guy's not crazy, and he might be saying this, but hey, you know, never made the paper, never got in, just never ever used. And this guy was a named frontline writer for that paper, never used. So there are two things running together in journalism. One is the closed-mindedness of most journalists, they're certainly not all, and the other thing is even those that are open to seeing life in a more expansive way, they then face the block of the structure. And the worst kind of censorship is self-censorship. This is how the system works. It's like the mouse in the laboratory maze. If you're going to get a shock all the time for going down these channels, then you stop going down them, and you can take the shock technology away, the mouse won't go down there anymore because it's been shocked too many times. And with journalists, if you know that if you cross a certain line in what you write, then there's going to be, it's either going to get spiked, not used, or there's going to be a problem for you, then eventually most journalists know the line they shouldn't cross. And there's a very interesting documentary which is available through the internet. It's about, I forget what it's called now, but it's about Fox News. And it's a documentary talking to former people who worked for Fox News, of course Murdoch's station in America, which is the most biased station I've ever seen. And they tell this whole story of how there's such limits on what they can say and how they can report things that in the end you just stop putting it in or offering it or doing it if it crosses that line. Self-censorship's the worst thing, because then, you know, there's no confrontation, there's no debate, hey, why is this being censored? It just isn't done, and that's the worst kind of censorship. And journalists who succumb to that, well, they've succumbed to any connection to the word journalist for me.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thanks.
Hello. Hi. David Icke. I've kind of been interviewed on a program at 10:15.
Right. We have reviewed the material which has submitted to us.
Say again?
We've reviewed the material which has submitted to us.
Uh-huh.
And we've also reviewed the radio regulations 1986.
I don't believe it. You got an exclusive here. Go ahead.
And we just don't feel comfortable with it.
Why?
Just don't feel comfortable.
Why? Explain to me.
No, that's it. Sorry. Thank you very much for your time.
You have invited me onto a radio station. I turn up on time, and you stand there and say, without any substance or explanation, we're not having you on. Now,
I just explained to you.
No, you haven't. Why? Tell me why.
I have reviewed the material which you have written, and I don't feel comfortable with it on the radio.
Why?
No, that's it.
This is what I'm talking about when I say the public are given one version of reality, and people like this at AM 1040 in Vancouver prevent them having another version of reality, which means, of course, that they're getting part of the story and not what they're really entitled to hear. And if you think not exposing the fact that children are being abused in fantastic numbers, my friend, is too much for your radio station, then you tell the children who are being abused.
Thanks for coming in.
You know what your radio station is?
Thanks for coming in.
It's pathetic.
Thank you very much for coming in.
And you say you believe in freedom? You couldn't spell it.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
This is life in the free world, ladies and gentlemen. And this is one of the architects, unknowingly, of the destruction of our freedom. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
This is unbelievable. No explanation, no substance, no debate, just that's it. No conspiracy, no suppression of information, ladies and gentlemen of the world. Well, you've just seen it yet again.
You did say you were sick of doing radio interviews.
That's not the point. Whether I have to do one after the other to get this information out is irrelevant to the fact that the information again and again is being suppressed. Why? They'll tell you what the government wants you to know. They'll tell you what the transnational corporations and the stock market want you to know. They won't tell you what they don't want you to know. And people like that are unknowing, frightened little men who are editing the news while claiming to be part of a media that is free.
It was in reading some of the writings of David Icke that the decision was taken. Hang on a minute. Why isn't this guy in the courts of Canada? Because he out and out calls two of our former prime ministers of Canada. He says they are rapists. And I'm that if he truly believes that there is a superhuman extraterrestrial power overriding everything that happens on this planet that stifles opinion and stifles free speech, then why is he still with us? Why haven't the lizard men taken him out?
Thursday, the coalition has failed to convince VTV, a popular local television station, to cancel David's scheduled appearance. Finally, David has a chance to put his side of the story across to the people of Vancouver.
Joining me now is David Icke and SFU psychology professor Dr. Barry Beierstein, who is also president of the BC Skeptic Society. Dr. Beierstein, whether or not Mr. Icke's theories make sense, why do you think he has a following when a lot of people would think that the ideas are completely out of this world?
What research have you done on that?
I'm just trying to just get this question from
Nothing.
Dr.
And you make
Dr.
statements like
Beierstein.
that. That's nonsense.
Well, I think the nonsense is in the other side, but that aside, your question was why do people believe it? Well, I think people like to enchant themselves, and this is classic mystery mongering. People want there to be grand conspiracies, and they want the world to be an even more mysterious place than it is, and they want simplistic, pat answers for why they're not happy, why the world isn't the wonderful place they think it should be, and that is more satisfactory.
Professor?
Just a minute, let me finish. That's more satisfactory psychologically than the sort of thing that science and decent scholarship will say.
Well, let's get Mr. Icke to respond to that.
Professor, did you major in patronizing the people of British Columbia? Because you really ought to have done. Tell me about... Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Let's stick with your silly ideas, not the people that believe them.
Okay.
Let's talk about, first of all, why Jewish groups are calling you anti-Semitic.
Because I'm getting too close to the truth. When you get too close to the truth, they can assassinate you, or they can assassinate your character. In my case, they've chosen the latter.
How would you respond to that, Dr. Beierstein?
Don't get into these convoluted and paranoid fantasies that people are trying to shut you up. I mean, and what are you doing? You're on one of the biggest media outlets in Vancouver right now. That's hardly shutting you up.
I've actually had 2 major interviews on radio pulled this week by the owners of the network. I've had book signings cancelled because of attacks on my character.
Tangible, perhaps, for us to hold on to, is the claim that we are run by reptiles. That the royal family is reptilian. The reptile cities under the earth, and that they include, these Illuminati include presidents and prime ministers, Burt Bacharach. And Bob,
the man who invented the... Yes, you have.
Burt Bacharach attends a place called Bohemian Grove, along with people. I've named people that attend Bohemian Grove.
And suggesting that they're part of the Illuminati.
I have named certain people as part of the Illuminati, but other people attend that place that we're not.
Well, this is an easier one for us to sort of get a grasp on than you know, sort of the cosmos as a whole. Is the belief that our royal family are shapeshifters.
Well, where have I got this from? I mean, did I sit in a darkened room and think, you know, I think that's what it is? I have travelled to more than 40 countries over 14 years. I've talked to thousands of people from every walk of life you can imagine. And once you start to get a reputation for this, you become a magnet for people who know things but don't know how to get them out, so they come to you. And this whole idea of non-human entities manipulating our world by, if you like, possessing the human form of certain bloodlines has come to me from endless sources of people from, like I say, every different walk of life you can imagine, who told me their experiences, from people who've experienced seeing members of the royal family in this strange non-human state. I got a call from a lady in America who is the head of an organization called Parents Against Ritual Abuse. I hadn't gone public on this reptilian thing at all at the time, and I was talking to her about the scale of child satanic ritual abuse in America. In the middle of this conversation, she said to me, "Can you help me?" She said, there's something I don't understand. Can you explain why so many of my clients tell me that during these rituals the participants turn into reptiles? And this has come to me from so many different sources. Then you go back and you look at the ancient accounts in Asia, South America, Australia, North America, of accounts of what happened to them in the ancient past. And what do you find? You find again and again this constantly recurring theme of entities moving between human and reptilian
They can't be
form.
happy that you're sort of outing them. Why haven't they killed you?
Well, what's kind of interesting is that the attempts to stop me speaking in public and the attempts to stop my books being published massively increased once I introduced the reptilian element to it. I have had a tremendous...
An element of a bestseller there then, eh, David?
And a
Let's
tremendous
put something strange in.
amount of effort to stop me speaking in public, not least in North America. Why, if I'm crazy, just leave me to it.
Well then, you see, you take symbols like the ancient symbol of the dragon, which is all outside the city of London on the boundaries, presumably the dragon on the Welsh flag. You make a reference to the frog prince, therefore not being a fairy tale because a human being has to kiss an amphibious reptile thing. George and the dragon, I suppose. These are all, you think, mythical but real.
Well, when you go back to the ancient world, you find that symbolism they use for many things turns up in the modern world. And of course, to people that don't understand the symbolism, have not been initiated into the knowledge, they see the symbol and that's it. But the people behind this manipulation to a global Orwellian fascist state, now I've been talking about this in my books for 14 years. Is anyone really still today so naive that they're not looking around them, particularly since 9/11, and seeing that we are moving daily into this Orwellian global fascist state? Well, we've reached the level that the law is now being changed, so when you enter American airspace in a plane, you can't queue for the toilet. I mean, what else in our lives is going to be controlled?
Since 9/11, we certainly live in a very, very different world. Where
so who was behind 9/11?
Well, it takes a big old leap of faith to jump into the fact that it was actually caused by lizards.
Well, you're talking on that level. When you read this book, Alice in Wonderland and the World Trade Center disaster, one of many, many books produced since 9/11, with real research and real journalism, you see that the official story of 9/11 is taken apart. It had to be caused and orchestrated within the borders of the United States. You won't see that on Trevor McDonald Tonight. You won't see that on ITN. But the real researchers and the real journalists who don't work for the mainstream media can take 9/11 apart. It is a lie from start to finish. So not one strand of the official story fits with another.
So you suggest the Americans, this is you suggesting, not our thoughts, but you suggest the Americans created 9/11 to frighten us into thinking, well, in that case, we must have a war on terrorism.
Well, yes, in a basic theme, yes, but not Americans. The force that controls America and controls the American government. The technique of which 9/11...
Which is the city here? Sorry? Which is the city here in the UK?
Well, it effectively controlled from Europe. America has been set up as a big bad Satan, so everyone's looking over there. That's where the power is, America, when the real power is actually in Europe, in the secret society network, where the center of the secret society network is. But 9/11 is a classic example of a mass mind manipulation technique I've been writing about for years, which I call problem, reaction, solution. You want to change society in a way that you know if you operate openly, you'll get a reaction against it. People say, we're not having this, what are you doing? So you play this technique, dead simple. Stage one, you create a problem. You make sure that someone is immediately blamed for it, so the public focus is, oh, that's the villain, so they don't open-mindedly look at who could be behind it. Stage two is you communicate the official version of that story to the public through the media, mainstream media, unquestioned. So you want the public at stage two to say, this can't go on, something must be done, what are they going to do about it? And then at stage three, you openly offer the solutions to the problems you created, which are changes in society, like we've had since 9/11, that fundamentally advance the agenda to the global fascist state. Ask me back in 5 years' time,
Well,
and you'll be asking different
if we're here
questions.
after the Bible Code man who said we would all be blown up by 2006.
We'll have it by 2006.
David, thank you. It's lovely to see. We've known each other for years, and thank you for coming in. And the book, Tales from the Time Loop. There it is.
And Alice in Wonderland, the World Trade Center.
And we'll see you after the break.
Welcome back to Wogan Now and Then. I first interviewed my next guest in 1991. Before then, he was best known as a popular BBC sports presenter, but by the time he'd appeared on Wogan, his life had taken a dramatic change. He proclaimed he was the son of the Godhead. He wore turquoise, as he believed it brought him closer to God. Have a look at this.
So evil has been in control of the planet for 12,000 years?
It has been the dominating force. Evil's not the right word. It is imbalance. But it has been increasingly in control. As I repeat, survey the world, ladies and gentlemen. Is the force of love in control of this world, guiding this planet at this time? Of course not. The negativity, the thoughts that I'm talking about that are very destructive, are pouring out of this planet
Well, let me
every
interrupt
day.
you. Was it a great shock for you to discover this at 38?
Well, I think the word is gobsmacked. But again, you know, the best way of removing negativity is to laugh and be joyous. So I'm delighted that there's so much laughter in the audience tonight.
But no, it's
but just let me say this.
They're laughing at you. They're not laughing with you.
Fine.
I didn't mean that to be hurtful.
Terry.
I don't want you to misinterpret it. They're not laughing in sympathy with you.
So, well, 15 years ago, he was ridiculed for his prophecies about natural disasters around the world. And now he has a controversial new view about who really is running the world. I'm delighted that he's agreed to come back. David Icke.
Thank you, no problem.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Now, again, when I see that, I'm slightly embarrassed by it because I thought I was a bit sharp with that comment. So, and at the time I said I didn't mean it to embarrass you. So, that interview at the time, it changed everything for you, didn't it?
Well, it changed everything in the sense of I couldn't walk down any street in Britain without being laughed at by most of the people. Going in a pub, there was uproar. A comedian only had to say my name to get a laugh. And what that does is it reveals to you the level of immaturity that passes for adulthood in this country, whereby clearly a guy was going through an incredible experience. And instead of being mature and saying, why is this guy gone from being this, what you would call straight, normal television presenter, to how he is now? This is interesting. What's happening here? Instead, and I heard the ripples of laughter 16 years on when my name was mentioned. People just laughed. But the other, which gave me a real insight, especially given what I'm doing now in my books, about how easy it is for the few to control the many. Because the many, you know, we laugh at sheep because sheep just follow the one in front. Ah, stupid sheep. We humans have out-sheeped the sheep because at least the sheep need a sheepdog to keep them in line. Humans keep each other in line. And they do it by ridiculing or condemning anyone who commits the crime, because that's what it's become, of being different. I had a choice, Terry, at that point. I could have ended up faced with that scale of ridicule and ended up shaking in the corner. Or I could have said, as I did, laugh, condemn, I don't give a damn. This is me. And if you don't like me, well, that's bad news, because this is the only me there is. And I refuse to conform and be bowed by the ridicule. And what it does, Terry, when you step out of the little box of what will other people think, how do I put this in a way that people won't think I'm crazy, you then realize how small a box you've actually been living in.
But you do understand that, and I know you do, that you did make yourself a target because what you were saying was outlandish. It was, by normal standards, outlandish and outrageous, very intense. Just have a look at this.
What about eruption? When may we expect tidal waves, eruptions, earthquakes?
Well, because of the nature of the way the Earth has been treated over a long period of time, a tremendous amount of energy has built up within the Earth that cannot get out. If it doesn't get out, bang. So this is going to be released in a controlled manner, as controlled as possible, through earthquakes, through volcanoes and such like. If they don't happen, this is not punishment. If they don't happen, there is no Earth.
You see, you're still obviously bitter about people's rejection of your ideas.
No, absolutely not. What I am is frustrated at watching Orwell's 1984 unfold in front of our eyes by the day while people focus on who shot Phil Mitchell. That is frustrating, because my children and your children, thank you, are going to have to live, indeed, in the timescale, so are we, because we're living in it now, when the most basics of freedoms are being taken away. Yeah, and this is happening all over the world, and it's coordinated. Now, if people want to think that that's all happening by accident, please be my guest. I don't give a damn.
But who is,
but the evidence is that it's not. Eh?
If it's controlled, it's not happening by accident. Who is controlling people or trying to control them?
Well, there is a network of families that you can take back to the ancient world, to places like Babylon, Sumer, which is now Iraq. You can chart them through to Rome, where they were responsible for the Roman Empire and the creation of the Roman Church. God save us from religion, by the way. And then they came up into Europe to become the European aristocracy and royal families. Then through the great empires of Europe, especially the British Empire, but others too, these family bloodlines and the secret society network through which they manipulate themselves into power were exported all over the world. And then when the point came where the European colonial powers appeared to give independence to these countries, that was only on the surface. What actually happened was the family bloodlines and the secret society network through which they manipulate was left out in these former colonies, and they've gone on controlling them ever since. So what you have is a hidden hand where events are manipulated, like 9/11, which not just me, but endless other researchers now around the world have taken apart the official story. It insults the intelligence of a 10-year-old. And you have a hidden hand manipulating events, and the whole goal of it is centralization of power to the point where humans are little more than controlled clones.
Who's the hidden hand? I mean, who are these hidden hands?
This network of families I'm talking about. You find that people that are in positions of apparent power, like prime ministers and presidents, are actually puppets of the real power, which doesn't put itself on public display. Why would it? I mean, does anyone really think that George W. Bush is running America? He probably couldn't tie his shoelaces, never mind run a country. Let me tell you this. Tell me about the project for the new American century. Tell me about it.
I know nothing about it.
Exactly. Well, let me tell you then something that you should know about. And this is written down. In the 1990s, an organization was created in America called the Project for the New American Century. The people who created it were the people that have run the Bush administration from the moment it came to power. In the year 2000, in September, the Project for the New American Century produced a report, a document, calling for a series of conquests of countries, one of which was Iraq. He actually says in the document, words to the effect of, we must use the excuse of Saddam Hussein to go into Iraq.
But look, can I interrupt?
No, hold a second.
No, but honestly,
no.
Honestly, you see this?
See, but this is the thing, Terry, you see.
No, but honestly.
You say to me...
America is an open society, isn't it?
Oh, please.
It's not an open society.
I've got some seafront property in Birmingham, Terry, you might like to buy, mate, honestly. Please. Please.
David.
And they say I'm crazy and weird. America is an open society. My
Well,
God.
I thought in my innocence that most Americans would know what was going on in America.
Oh, God.
But it's all, you know it all, and...
Oh, see, now you talked about cheap jibes. That's a cheap jibe.
No, it's
I'm
not.
not claiming I know it all. I'm saying that I've been to 40 countries. I've spent enormous amount of time in America talking to people who do know what's going on, victims of what's going on, and I'm passing this over to people.
But
Now, yeah, sure.
You see how preposterous it is.
What, the fact that you think America's an open society?
No.
Absolutely ludicrous, Terry. I've never heard anything so stupid in your life.
Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. David Icke, thank you. Good luck with your mission.
Pleasure. Thank you.
So join me after the break, and I'll be chatting to Ulrika Johnson about life in the tabloids. You'd be mad to miss it.
Round and round, swirly, swirly, you're in a swirly trance and so relaxed.
I can't believe we get away with this. It's ludicrous how they can't notice the state they're in being programmed like a load of lemons. Look, some of them are actually rocking back and forth dribbling. Good God.
Hello, I'm Kate Silverton with your 90-second update. This is what police believe canoeist John Darwin looked like in the 5 years he was missing. They hope the photo will jog people's memories about where he was during that time. Mr. Darwin's appeared in court accused of insurance fraud. Lee and Rachel Baker ran a care home in Somerset. Today they were arrested on suspicion of murdering 5 elderly people. The bodies of some residents at Parkfield's home in Butley were dug up for tests. British forces are set to be in Afghanistan for a few more years. Gordon Brown's promised continued UK support in the fight against the Taliban. He's been visiting troops there. Jose Mourinho doesn't want to be the next England football coach. The former Chelsea boss has ruled himself out. He did confirm he'd spoken to the FA. And this is a long-eared jerboa. It looks like a mouse-sized kangaroo. It's the first time it's been caught on film. Experts say they're in danger of extinction.
Over to Bob for the weather and funnies. A murdering mob, some ugly Bugs Bunny. With a Valentine's card from a ghost town that's haunted by the National Guard and America's least wanted. Coming up next, we got more global warming. The greenhouse effect on the Beatles reforming. A miracle diet of water and lettuce. Los Angeles riots. More after this message.
In the next half an hour, the jury with their verdict. 2 bags of flour, a pig and a turnip. On the day of the jackass in the year of the bing bong, they adjourn to the crack house for a beer and a sing-song. To the end of this story, I'll tell your mum and dad not to worry. I'll love you forever when the TV is gone, and I'll love you now when it's on.
Potatoes and meat from the heart of America to the eyes and the teeth and the arsehole of everywhere, for the great of the good and the love of the nation, to the boys in the hoods with a crucifixation.
Cable, the network, to the land, to the plenty where the tables are set, but the cupboards are empty. It's sexy, it's groovy, it's big and it's clever. Turn on and tune in and switch off forever. Turn on, tune in, 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 switch off forever.
You ever heard that phrase, everyone knows that, mate? Well, why does everyone know that? Well, it's because this system is controlled by what I call repeaters. They're people in the situations of power and influence who just repeat what someone else tells them. A doctor is repeating what they were told at medical school and what the drug companies tell them. You've got teachers who repeat what they learned in their exams and what they learned at teacher training college, and they repeat that to the next generation. And the great repeaters are what pass for journalists. This is that area outside Parliament where they stand there doing their pieces to camera, telling people what's going on. Here we have the crews waiting for the journalists to come across from Westminster and stand there and tell them what's happening in the world. The fact is, they don't know what's happening. They know nothing. So this is what they should be saying if they were telling the truth. Now over to Westminster for the latest news from David Icke. Thank you, you. Well, I've got to be honest, mate, I haven't got a clue what's going on. I tell you what my job is, right? I wear a dark suit, not normally, but, you know, I'm playing here. And I'm come over from there, and I tell you what they've told me is going on. And I deliver it as if I know what's going on, and it's really true. I've got a clue if it's true. But they tell me, and they wouldn't lie, would they? I mean, would Tony Blair lie about what's really happening? Would George Bush, please? I'm a journalist, trust me. And so, what we call news, what you get paid a lot of money for reading Autocue about, is merely propaganda that they have told me and I tell you. David Icke, BBC, ITN, CNN, CBS, Sky News, Westminster.
You think I'd be on hundreds of radio stations, on all these years, lying? You think I'd get away with that? I've already given you all the evidence and all the proof. Why don't you just go check it out for yourself? When I get up here and tell you Anwar al-Awlaki, I told you this 5 years ago, is CIA operative behind finding these mentally ill Muslims to carry out badly coordinated attacks as a pretext to take our rights. If that wasn't true, I'd be crucified. But people send me emails saying I'm lying about AP and Fox News. I'm not lying about any of this. I'm telling the truth. And a lot of you out there that sit on the fence and quietly know this is true, media people, government people, corporate people who go along with this, you're being enslaved because of it.